Welcome, folks. We are just getting started. We are streaming live on Facebook, Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Telegram. I just got to get the Facebook Live going, and then we will start, and the Telegram, and we will begin, folks. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on all our other social media. The links are in the description. Today, we're going to be talking about Executive Order 13818 as a possible solution and way forward and how we fight this corruption. And we're going to tie it in as a solution and apply it as it pertains to Alexandra Dean's case as well. So we're going to be providing you some great insight and great possible solutions forward that we can fight back, folks. So this is going to be a good one. Okay, folks, here we go. The views expressed on this show are expressly the views of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views, beliefs, or opinions of News4US.WORLD, its hosts, broadcasters, or affiliates. Remember, folks, always use your own discernment when viewing. We encourage our viewers to think for themselves. And here we are, and this is a News4US World special report. We have Kathy Hebert. Is that how you pronounce it?
Hebert.
Okay.
Like one in the woods. It's Cajun. The H and T are silent.
Okay, gotcha. So why don't you tell our viewers exactly what you're going to show them today and how it's going to tie into how we fight back. I think that's a great possible solution here, and I'll bring it up on the screen share as you talk.
That's a good start. Sure. So the due process denied is what hurts people, and it only hurts people at the county level. And there's only a handful of people at the administrator level that are obligated to do their processes correctly. But now that they are corporate has to earn a profit or they fail, right? So where are these corporate profit administrators going to get their profit from? If it's not from the people, they don't get one. So they've taxed us as much as they can. And since there's no more money to take from the people, now they're taking the seniors into probate court and the children into foster care. And it's a racket. It's a corporate profit racket. So the only way I can see is that Executive Order 31818. The title used to be 31818. Somehow, even on my end where I had it saved, it changed to 1318 something. But it says in part, all public servants found corrupt are to have their properties, assets, and accounts frozen. A little later, it says sooner rather than later because they tend to hide what they steal. So connecting these dots where our Constitution is the 7 articles that tells them what their job is. That's their due process. And if it hurts people, it is not constitutional. So how do they hurt us is because we've given them the advantage of creating any agency with our money, and all of these agencies and departments have policies and bylaws. Those are not laws. The law of the land is the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights are our guarantee that we exercise. So when they hurt us, we take them to task, but not by ourselves, because they'll just take you out. You have a grand jury because the founders knew that the gang stalking was probably likely for profit if we allow it. But the grand jury was our way to protect ourselves so that we're governed by consent through the grand jury. But several years ago, and I don't know how many, I know for sure in 1990, the prosecutor had sole control over the grand jury. And there's no reason for him to take his professional peers, to task because they make way too much money. So when Justice Scalia put the majority opinion onto the record, and it's shown on the Brunson case, Justice Scalia says, why are there no instructions where you can find them, that how do you do a grand jury? And there are no instructions because it's up to the people to be either wise enough or harmed enough to come to the conclusion that we are governed by consent and the grand jury is the way we take them to task. I'm going to yield because I don't want to be a monologue here.
No, you're good. You're perfect. I'm glad you got to explain the context of that. So I'm going to have the screen reader screen read this executive order. I want people to understand exactly what it is and how it can pertain to everything that because it's not too long. It's actually pretty recently.
Right. It's pretty clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll yield for now.
Let's play this.
Do you want me to mute?
You can if you want. Yeah, but I mean, not.
Yeah. I don't want to interfere.
Yeah, go ahead. And then I want you to explain a little bit more afterwards how this is going to apply to how we fight back, if you will.
Sure.
By the authority vested in me as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, 50 U.S.C. 1701 et sec, EPA, the National Emergencies Act, 50 U.S.C. 1601 et sec, NEA, the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act, Public Law 114 to 328, the Act, Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, 8 U.S.C. 1182F, INA, and Section 301 of Title III, United States Code. I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, find that the prevalence and severity of human rights abuse and corruption that have their source, in whole or in substantial part, outside the United States, such as those committed or directed by persons listed in the annex to this order, have reached such scope and gravity that they threaten the stability of international political and economic systems. Human rights abuse and corruption undermine the values that form an essential foundation of stable, secure, and functioning societies, have devastating impacts on individuals, weaken democratic institutions, degrade the rule of law, perpetuate violent conflicts, facilitate the activities of dangerous persons, and undermine economic markets. The United States seeks to impose tangible and significant consequences on those who commit serious human rights abuse or engage in corruption, as well as to protect the financial system of the United States from abuse by these same persons. I therefore determine that serious human rights abuse and corruption around the world constitute an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security, foreign policy, and economy of the United States, and I hereby declare a national emergency to deal with that threat. I hereby determine and order. Section 1. A. All property and interests in property that are in the United States, that hereafter come within the United States, or that are or hereafter come within the possession or control of any United States person of the following persons are blocked and may not be transferred, paid, exported, withdrawn, or otherwise dealt in. I, the persons listed in the annex to this order. 2. Any foreign person determined by the Secretary of the Treasury, in consultation with the Secretary of State and the Attorney General. A. To be responsible for or complicit in, or to have directly or indirectly engaged in, serious human rights abuse. B. To be a current or former government official, or a person acting for or on behalf of such an official, who is responsible for or complicit in, or has directly or indirectly engaged in 1. Corruption, including the misappropriation of state assets, the expropriation of private assets for personal gain, corruption related to government contracts or the extraction of natural resources, or bribery, or 2. The transfer or the facilitation of the transfer of the proceeds of corruption. C. To be or have been the leader or official of 1. An entity, including any government entity, that has engaged in, or whose members have engaged in, any of the activities described in subsections 2A, 2B1, or 2B2, of this section relating to the leader's or official's tenure, or 2. An entity whose property and interests in property are blocked pursuant to this order as a result of activities related to the leader's or official's tenure, or d. To have attempted to engage in any of the activities described in subsections 2a, 2b1, or 2b2 of this section, and 3. Any person determined by the Secretary of the Treasury, in consultation with the Secretary of State and the Attorney General, a. To have materially assisted, sponsored, or provided financial, material, or technological support for, or goods or services to or in support of 1. Any activity described in subsections 2a, 2b1, or 2b2 of this section that is conducted by a foreign person. 2. Any person whose property and interests in property are blocked pursuant to this order, or 3. Any entity, including any government entity, that has engaged in, or whose members have engaged in, any of the activities described in subsections 2a, 2b1, or 2b2 of this section, where the activity is conducted by a foreign person. b. To be owned or controlled by, or to have acted or purported to act for or on behalf of, directly or indirectly, any person whose property and interests in property are blocked pursuant to this order, or c. To have attempted to engage in any of the activities described in subsections 3a, or b, of this section. b. The prohibitions in subsection a of this section apply except to the extent provided by statutes, or in regulations, orders, directives, or licenses that may be issued pursuant to this order, and notwithstanding any contract entered into or any license or permit granted before the effective date of this order. Sec. 2. The unrestricted immigrant and non-immigrant entry into the United States of aliens determined to meet one or more of the criteria in Section 1 of this order would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, and the entry of such persons into the United States, as immigrants or non-immigrants, is hereby suspended. Such persons shall be treated as persons covered by Section 1 of Proclamation 8693 of July 24, 2011, suspension of entry of aliens subject to United Nations Security Council travel bans and International Emergency Economic Powers Act sanctions. Sec. 3. I hereby determine that the making of donations of the types of articles specified in Section 203b, 2, of EIPA, 50 U.S.C. 1702b, 2, by, to, or for the benefit of any person whose property and interests in property are blocked pursuant to this order would seriously impair my ability to deal with the national emergency declared in this order, and I hereby prohibit such donations as provided by Section 1 of this order. Sec. 4. The prohibitions in Section 1 include a. The making of any contribution or provision of funds, goods, or services by, to, or for the benefit of any person whose property and interests in property are blocked pursuant to this order, and b. The receipt of any contribution or provision of funds, goods, or services from any such person. Sec. 5. A. Any transaction that evades or avoids, has the purpose of evading or avoiding, causes a violation of, or attempts to violate any of the prohibitions set forth in this order is prohibited. b. Any conspiracy formed to violate any of the prohibitions set forth in this order is prohibited. Sec. 6. For the purposes of this order, a. The term person means an individual or entity. b. The term entity means a partnership, association, trust, joint venture, corporation, group, subgroup, or other organization, and c. The term United States person means any United States citizen, permanent resident alien, entity organized under the laws of the United States or any jurisdiction within the United States, including foreign branches, or any person in the United States. Sec. 7. for those persons whose property and interests in property are blocked pursuant to this order who might have a constitutional presence in the United States. I find that because of the ability to transfer funds or other assets instantaneously, prior notice to such persons of measures to be taken pursuant to this order would render those measures ineffectual. I therefore determine that for these measures to be effective in addressing the national emergency declared in this order, there need be no prior notice of a listing or determination made pursuant to this order. Sec. 8. The Secretary of the Treasury, in consultation with the Secretary of State, is hereby authorized to take such actions, including adopting rules and regulations, and to employ all powers granted to me by e.d.t and the act as may be necessary to implement this order and Section 1263A of the Act with respect to the determinations provided for therein. The Secretary of the Treasury may, consistent with applicable law, delegate any of these functions to other officers and agencies of the United States. All agencies shall take all appropriate measures within their authority to implement this order. Sec. 9. The Secretary of State is hereby authorized to take such actions, including adopting rules and regulations, and to employ all powers granted to me by e.d.t, the NEWS, and the Act as may be necessary to carry out Section 2 of this order and, in consultation with the Secretary of the Treasury, the reporting requirement in Section 1264A of the Act with respect to the reports provided for in Section 1264B(2) of that Act. The Secretary of State may, consistent with applicable law, delegate any of these functions to other officers and agencies of the United States consistent with applicable law. Sec. 10. The Secretary of the Treasury, in consultation with the Secretary of State and the Attorney General, is hereby authorized to determine that circumstances no longer warrant the blocking of the property and interests in property of a person listed in the annex to this order, and to take necessary action to give effect to that determination. Sec. 11. The Secretary of the Treasury, in consultation with the Secretary of State, is hereby authorized to submit recurring and final reports to the Congress on the national emergency declared in this order, consistent with Section 401C of the NEWS, 50 U.S.C. 1641C, and Section 204C of e.d.t, 50 U.S.C. 1703C. Sec. 12. This order is effective at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, December 21, 2017. Sec. 13. This order is not intended to, and does not, create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, or entities, its officers, employees, or agents, or any other person.
And of course, signed Donald J. Trump, the White House, December 20th, 2017. So would you like to explain just briefly like how this ties in, how we can use this to fight back, Kathy?
Sure, I would like to.
And then we'll show
Go
that
ahead.
video of the grand jury one that we were talking about earlier. That
Nice.
yes.
Nice. Yeah,
Okay.
that'll work. Okay. Being that the county is where anybody gets harmed, you don't get harmed at the state. You come in the name of the state at the county, but it's a handful of enforcers who are being paid by the county commissioners, and they're doing policy, just doing what they're told. It doesn't mean they're all bad. No, none. I don't want to think any of them are evil, but the corporate process, they serve money and people serve the sovereign. I mean, those of us who do, I know that's where our power is. And what does the sovereign give us? A witnessing. Our tongue is a function of the spirit. So we witness the truth for each other is why it's not fixed already. Their agreements are written down in codes and they call them law. They're the color of law and the titles prevent them from being allowed to do that, but we just haven't brought it to them correctly yet. And it has to be done civilized. When we come into agreement, we have one person that's been harmed. They're supposed to go to the grand jury and say, this is this is my damage and that's who did it and I need remedy. And we vote who's wrong. And the public servants are never going to get chastised by the prosecutor since he's taken over the grand jury. Now we can't get a people's grand jury because the state occupies that position. Now we become the grand jury in agreement with each other. And there's many assemblies. 38 states have people's assemblies already started. Not all of them are active, and not most of them are looking for the grand jury because they're still establishing their agreements. But once the state committee is assembled, then it comes to the county, which is a committee of safety. Historically, it's called that in the ecclesia. So when you have a problem with the county administrators or an enforcer, you can go to the committee of safety in your county and have some witnesses and protection from the bureaucracy, so to speak. It just grew, and it probably grew from people feeding their greed for profit and hoarding it. But we people have the power in agreement when we humble ourselves and witness for each other, identify who it was that did what harm, and take that individual to task. It's a civilized thing. We give them a notice of liability. We give them an opportunity to answer. And when they don't answer, just like we are, in default, guilty. If we don't answer, we admit everything by their own rules. The failure to object timely is fatal because we have to object to what they're doing and say who it is that did what. And when we do, they have to correct it, or being in default, that summons to the county commissioners allows the people to come as a group, more than the assembly, I hope, more than the commissioners, more than 2 or 3. 25 is the accepted number of the grand jury. So when we take our grand jury and say we wrote it down, we offered them the opportunity to fix it, but they're still being paid to hurt the next person. So we want you to stop their pay. They don't get to go to work tomorrow until they negotiate the reparations that they've already damaged some people. So the victim gets compensation and the bully gets consequences. The consequences through that executive order, once we've given them a civilized opportunity to respond, when they don't, they're guilty. The commissioners stop allowing them to hold that position of privilege to serve the public when they're hurting the public. So they stop the pay. And at that moment, we should have researched their property, put the liens on, whether it's a commercial, a common law, or a mechanic's lien. Basically, when we do it together in the name of the injured party, they won't do any good to attack the injured party, because now the public is watching. So those liens go on, and depending on what kind of lien it is on all of their properties, assets, and accounts, that you wait 40, 60, or 90 days. At the end of that period of time, by agreement, the group gets to take that lien off of their properties and give back to the damaged party whatever it's going to be to help them rebuild their life, making them whole again. That's the enforcement of it. Is that executive order.
Okay. So basically you can force their hand if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, basically that way.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Angie, would you resend that video? Because I when I made you host it, I jumped off it. I no longer have it in the chat, so I'm going to need you to resend that. Angie.
It has to download. Maybe I have a copy of it.
Do you have it? Oh, there she is.
Oh, good.
You got it, Angie?
Hold on. Because I got to. It's in my Telegram, so no, hold on. Just give me a second.
Take your time, no worries. I just realized that I didn't have it in here, and I was like, oh crap, I need to get it again.
Oh, while she's getting that ready, could I make the mention that the first grand jury has come and been what the grand jury offers is a true bill if they find that there's probable cause, and the true bill is given in the form of a presentment. So the presentment shows that we have a need to be governed by consent constitutionally. And so the grand jury looked down through the case between Roger and Stewart, and I'm calling them Who Framed Roger Rabbit case trial, because the denial of due process hurts us all. And that's the process we fix it. So the presentment of a true bill has already been delivered to Judge Breslow, DA Stagey, and it's on its way to Assistant DA Jenkins, unless she's been demoted to a police officer. I think she was. because she failed to investigate. There was no restraining order keeping Roger from taking his mother. But the sister screamed, "He's dangerous. He's threatened me with a gun." The police took that to the district assistant district attorney Jenkins, who was young and new, wanted to make a name for herself. So instead of investigating, is there an actual order? There wasn't, but she didn't investigate to find out. She called the FBI, put a silver alert out, and they tackled him. They found him in California she was going to visit her brother. And they brought the helicopters, the SWAT team. They had flak jackets and high-powered weapons. And the media says that there was a 4-hour dangerous standoff, but they were sleeping. Roger and his mother were sleeping in the room when they came and took him out.
Yeah, I
and
seen that video. It was like in the middle of the night.
Now he's looking at 68 years in prison, and he's been in
bullshit.
9 months. He's been 9 months in jail.
That's
without any
bullshit.
complaint. They don't show the warrant. Steggy said that the DA Steggy. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Our governor extradited him. He was even here in Missouri for a while, locked
Yes,
up.
he was.
Our governor
Missouri dismissed it.
that.
Missouri dismissed it in Missouri, and they let him go. But then Nevada came and got him quickly. It wasn't because Missouri told him.
Yeah,
to.
how long did they hold him here? How long was he held in Missouri? It was a while.
About a month. About a month, I think, in Missouri. But
Yeah.
that was like in the winter last year, in 2000.
Right. So
I'm not sure
they
those days.
dropped
I'm not
it. So he
sure
just
those days.
spent a month.
Yeah, because he didn't do anything wrong in
So
Missouri.
they dropped it. So he just spent a month in jail here for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, they had the U.S. Marshals come and put there. Jody said there were 6 guns pointed right at his head. She was afraid they were just going to blast them both.
Oh, wow.
They were at the grocery store parking lot, surrounded him all of a sudden, and so they took him back to. And he doesn't have a warrant. There's nothing on the record. That's the whole cool. The cool part is the investigation shows what's on the docket, and those of us who have been working with him to try to keep him protected, because there's 700 other people on the network that were observing his due process being done. No due process, no constitutional effort or consideration at all. It's all processed by policy, guidelines, bylaws, and statute. And they say, well,
Yeah.
we rule with the Nevada statutes. Okay, and they call him a sovereign citizen. No, a sovereign citizen is one trying to, it's a doctrine. It's a doctrine that the legals made up. So you're trying to serve 2 masters, are you? You can't serve the sovereign and be a citizen at the same time.
Right. The 2 terms contradict each other.
Yeah, you're either serving the state
Right. The
or
only
you're
ones
serving
really
God.
doing that is the judges themselves.
Yeah, they're the ones,
Judges themselves
according
are-
to their definition. Yeah.
But they're not even serving
They're
the sovereign.
They're
They're
the
serving
No.
money.
sovereign citizen. Yeah.
Well,
We're
their
just
definition is that
sovereign
people who think they're above the law, but that's exactly what these corrupt courts are doing. They think they're above the law. So they're really projecting that onto their victims, what they in fact are.
So this presentment was
Exactly.
delivered to them yesterday, and it has been served up through, or it's being served up through the administrators up to the United States Supreme Court, because they've tapped every court along the way, and the administrators are just ignoring it or denying it like they usually do so many times. So the email is going up through that rank, through their food chain, and is coming down through all of the other victims who observed this case from early on and are actually being attacked themselves.
Would
So
you?
it's the victims being the grand jury. Okay, I yield.
Oh no, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say, if you wanted me to show that America's Republic People's Grand Jury document you sent me, do you want me to show that?
Oh yes, please.
Okay.
Oh yes, please. Thank you.
All right. Here we go. There we go.
I got this email to me the other day. I love this. I was reading it to Jessica and a friend of ours, and I had goosebumps reading it because I just was so excited because I know what we can do, you know?
That's a good sign. Yeah, goosebumps are good.
Let's.
Yeah.
Do you want to screen read it, or do you want to just go over it briefly? Did you put the video in the chat, Dottie?
Yeah.
Where's
I
it
don't know
at?
if it's uploaded. I put it in the group, the Zoom chat.
Yeah, is it how far is it uploaded? Because it hasn't come in yet on my end.
Oh, I don't know. I don't
Okay, no
have the
worries.
chat up.
Oh, no worries. As long as it'll come up soon, as soon as it's
Can
done.
your screen reader read that like
Yeah,
you did the other
it
day?
can. It can.
Do that. Do
Yeah.
that. Yes,
Okay,
please.
so yeah, give me 1 second. Let me get
I'm
it
going
to do
on
its
mute.
thing.
I'm watching.
So I gotta actually save this. Actually, go back. Hold up. I gotta save this to my desktop to get it to read it properly. And then all I gotta do here is upload it, and then it'll screen read it just fine. People's, there we go.
America's Republic First Amendment assembled people's grand jury served on all interested parties of the probate guardianship, victims of the system and perpetrators requiring correction served and sealed.
Start that again. Sorry about that. I didn't share sound. All right, here we go.
America's Republic First Amendment assembled people's grand jury served on all interested parties of the probate guardianship, victims of the system and perpetrators requiring correction served and sealed by the people of the public. To the Washoe County, Nevada administrators et al. Notice to principal is notice to agent people's grand jury presentment true bill. This presentment is the notice taken by the people of the grand jury and delivered to all interested people. Thorough examination of the law of justice necessitates inquiry of the offences stated in the tort claim of harm attested to, and affirmed under oath by the claimants. We, to the best of our knowledge and belief, based upon the facts made available to us and shown to us to be missing from what we could find, and from our own experiences, we do allow both parties to have a voice. If you hope to provide exculpatory evidence to our assembled public forum, your personal and professional knowledge of the facts and the law may be revealed as you answer the questions provided herein. Common sense dictates the need for further investigation per the law of justice as we people, governed by consent, choose to be governed by constitutional good behavior. 1. We people, having been diligent and impartial to both interested parties, allowing the truth to reveal itself through the observable recorded docket, which we accept as the honorable account of truth until proven otherwise. To prevent further complications, we kindly request your full participation and cooperation to the resolution of the matters presented. Your honorable intention to clear up any malfeasance, as representative of integrity in our constitutional republic. Article 3 Supreme law of the land is anticipated to the fullness of complete satisfaction toward a fair, agreeable resolution. Our continuing review and forensic audit of the recorded docket necessitates we inquire further as adequate evidence of having adhered to due process has yet to be revealed in the record. This presentment true bill we do hereby make. Be it known by all interested parties, on this 23 day of June in the 2023 year of our Lord, the voice of the community people's panel. We the people, governed by consent and with first-hand personal knowledge of real-life experience of the damage that is caused by the direct and indirect combined actions, deeds, and omissions of denial of due process. In the spirit of ensuring the true, sure, speedy, and fair administration of justice, we do find the man Barry Breslow, the man Amos Steezy and the woman Alison Jenkins Cladosty Brady, each to be with the appearance of impropriety and find probable cause of the existence of crime does exist. These public office servants of the Washoe County, Nevada administration have been for many years conspiring with others who are not yet named and may be called as witnesses and or may become named as accused perpetrators at trial. The 71 plus others who failed to correct, or otherwise did collude through their acts, deeds, or omissions of their own, and having personal knowledge of the evidence presented, are to be called as witnesses to the violations of law. To engage in bad behavior are unbecoming of public servants, and resulting in harm to our people, damages the necessary trust required by those populating and controlling our governing bodies. This true bill presentment endorsed by the grand jury is supported by evidence sufficient to warrant a trial. These violations are presently seen as an act of violence against our people, offensive to the law of justice, against our public and common good, and against our governing integrity. This shocks the conscience of our reasonable minds as grossly unjust, especially because these acts are being perpetrated by our public servants, with the aid of our tax resources. Those who do know or should have known, with the paid, sworn and bonded duty to know, that continuing to enforce acts of tort, with more than 9 months of no bail incarceration without a trial and without due process is punitive at best, damaging at worst. Obviously, being aware that denying due process has consequences, these actions are deceptive, nefarious, contrary to the law, and do hold severe consequences. We people as the responsible public are obligated to correct the injustices being perpetrated upon these claimants. And we know, as others have also suffered greatly, the harm caused to these men and perpetrated on too many others to list here. Too many are the serious violations of law and perversions of moral ethics as found in the claim hereby investigated. Therefore, by and through the people, witnessed by the people who do hold the public servants to the standard prescribed by law, as evidenced in the docket and by the evidence absent from the docket, as declaratory witnesses, we find it to be intolerable to further allow this obvious denial of due process. We have observed the evidence presented, and we have thoroughly investigated the facts. Upon review of the law and in consideration of the consequence of justice being served, we do unanimously agree that probable cause of corruption does exist, and sufficient evidence has been found to require the speedy and fair trial of the accused perpetrators. Probable cause of corruption has been found to warrant a speedy trial. By the authority of generations of established law and well-settled authority, and by virtue of the fact that in devising an entirely unique and novel constitutional republic, outlined and instituted by our founders as first branch of government, superior to the familiar executive, legislative, and judicial branches, comprised of we the people governed by consent, is implied and recognized, even by Supreme Court justices. The fullness of the details is hereby presented by the grand jury foreman. This list of questions demands answers. Otherwise we shall accept your silence as admitting all allegations listed in the available tort claim of harm, affirmed by the claimants and witnessed by the people's grand jury declaratory witnesses. Observed by association of other victims of the systematic denial of due process known as facts delivered to the administrators of the corporate justice system and each branch of its checks and balances, fully incorporated herein as though fully rewritten by reference and efforts ignored and or denied. Sheriffs of the many interested counties and states, federal, U.S. Marshals, the DOJ, FBI, IRS, SCOTUS, Congresses of both state and federal, agencies and departments, all or any interested PPP or NGO and their stakeholders, and affiliates who profit from the same activity in, as each who do eventually and ultimately profit corporately by fiction and from such emolument violations. While protecting and supporting the corporate policy stakeholders enforcing bylaws and color of law violently upon unsuspecting innocent people, systematically stealing and impounding, trafficking and socially engineering the dynamics of children and seniors, through force and coercion, fear of threats and by the violent retaliation, producing the combined effect of war of a foreign power to promote more war on others both within and outside of the territorial boundaries. This war waged against others intentionally, knowingly, willfully, wantonly, blatantly, creating the means, opportunity and motive to prey upon others for profit. No more. Enough, atone. We have investigated and discovered the truth, facts and law requiring full and immediate complete response to the grand jury foreman, attesting to your evidence of any defense you may have to substantiate your innocence or else atoning for your offenses. For truth and transparency within and by our further investigation, we do require and are entitled to by law, accept your response to the grand jury inquiry no later than 14 working days from the service of this true bill. You are required to release Roger Hillegas and Stuart Hand immediately, on this 27th day of June, 2023. With no further contact directly with the claimants. Release Roger and Stuart immediately from incarceration and CPS tracker. Your answers are required within 14 days of service, otherwise, default judgment shall be lodged against the perpetrators with summons to the show cause hearing. The County Commissioner's show cause hearing serves as the public trial, as the People's Petty Jury, in the County Commissioners' meeting. We offer your last opportunity to defend yourself before you are pronounced guilty and removed from public office, being dishonored as corrupt and or treasonous. At the conclusion of the public trial, if found guilty, enforcement of the guilty verdict will be effected in accordance with the Executive Order 31,818, peacefully and lawfully without delay, intended to serve justice without intent to harm. The sheriff or his deputy will be provided proper reward for his patience, peacekeeping in process, should we require his assistance to receive and process our citizens' arrest upon the subjects. The questions relevant to this investigation are as follows. 1. Susan Hillegas had paid attorney Moss to prepare and file Susan's trust authorizing security of her care to her son Roger for her senior years. By what authority, and acquired by who, was Roger removed from Susan's entrustment to Roger's care? 2. Who was then tasked with the authority to secure and oversee Susan's well-being while removed from Roger's protection? 3. Who and by what authority changed Roger from trustee to guardian? 4. Who was responsible for the determination that Susan was not competent? Please provide a thorough description of the processes and tests and their interpretations and conclusions, and the fullness of the documentation utilized to determine her competency, including any and all additional supporting evidence, including recordings. 5. Please also provide the credentials, oaths and education of any and all professional practitioners associated with the above. 6. Who assumed the authority to lock Susan into the facility against her will? 7. Who was responsible for determining Susan needed to be medicated, and by what justification? 8. Who was required to oversee that Susan was clean, fed, clothed and unharmed? 9. Who arranged for Susan's home to be sold and made the resultant resources available to you? 10. Provide the detailed itemized financial accounting documents of the sale of Susan's home and for the above numbered questions: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. 11. Provide the financial documents to identify how Susan's resources were distributed, and for what purposes, itemized detailed financial accounts, fully and thoroughly documented. 12. Who or what was authorized to prevent Roger from leaving the facility with Susan? Provide the documentation. Facility Manager Tom is on recording stating, "Yes, there must be an order on file restricting Roger from removing Susan, we just cannot find it yet." 13. What document did Jenkins rely upon to call the FBI to issue a silver alert? 14. Provide the documents Jenkins relied upon with the ink signature of the same. Tom was later recorded stating, "There was not an order restricting Roger from removing Susan from the facility." 15. Who was responsible for security to protect Susan from being harmed or kidnapped? 16. Did the facility have security cameras? Provide the recordings. 17. Who signed what document that in fact charged Roger with kidnapping Susan? 18. Provide the document with the ink signature authorizing the charges. 19. Who determined that Roger was violent, armed and dangerous for the SWAT team to claim the armed takedown was a violent standoff reported by many media videos of Roger's arrest and Susan's rescue? 20. Who authorized the jurisdiction to cross state lines with helicopters with many high-powered armed officers? 21. What are the names and ranks of these officers, and provide their oaths to uphold the Constitution? 22. What was the cost of these armed officers, helicopter and media coverage, and who paid for them? 23. Provide the detailed itemized financial records of the account regarding this broadcasted violent SWAT takedown standoff. 24. When did the SWAT team become aware that Roger and Susan were dangerous, when in fact they were peacefully sleeping in the location of this dangerous 4-hour standoff takedown/apprehension, as filmed and reported by many media sources? 25. Provide the written record, videos, cop cams, complaints, police reports and all other possible evidence you may have, accusing Roger of any violence in his history, any endangerment of any kind, any threats and/or use of guns at all ever, specifically at the time Jenkins commanded the armed SWAT Silver Alert. 26. What was the relationship between Robin Rennick, Deborah Bowers and Casey Zussman? 27. How or who authorized Robin, Deborah and Casey to have an appointment over Susan? 28. Provide the documentation. Provide documentation of the detailed itemized financial accounting for each where relevant. 29. Who hired the following Bar Association Esquire and paid how much and for what to? Todd Torvinian, Ryan Earl and David Spitzer? 30. Who paid how much and for what to? Todd Torvinian, Ryan Earl and David Spitzer? 31. Provide the detailed itemized financial accounting records for Todd Torvinian, Ryan Earl and David Spitzer? 32. Provide the detailed itemized financial accounting records for Todd Torvinian, Ryan Earl and David Spitzer and detailed financial records for the WHO that paid them how much? 33. Who authorized the lockout of Roger from the family residence in Golden Valley where Debbie Hillegas and Roger were caring for Susan Hillegas? 34. Was there ever a wanted poster posted on the inside of the facility by anyone employed there, and if so, under whose direction was that poster put up of Roger and Debbie? 35. And under what legal authority if the said poster was put up? 36. Did Jenkins identify the autographs of Stuart and Roger correctly to be an authority to pursue the beginning of the Silver Alert? 37. Did Jenkins admit that she incorrectly perjured herself after accusing the nickname Gus to be an attempt at deception and using said deception as justification for an attack against him? 38. When it became known that Jenkins did lied, misled about Roger, Stuart, Gus lying, who was it, if anyone, who attempted to correct the path of Roger and Stuart being attacked? 39. Is it a law, rule, order, habit, tradition, practice, covering up, a game or evil, or is it even ethical or proper, to continue an attack on an innocent individual once it is found to have been an inconsistency, or a case of mistaken identity? 40. Who was the first phone call to, on the 8th of August 2019 when Susan was rescued from Stone Valley? Why was the first call to _? 41. Who changed the status of the incident from a civil matter, as stated by Sergeant Rob Hannifin and Officer Timothy Avler, to a criminal matter? 42. Did the officer identify the authority preventing Roger from leaving with Susan? 43. If so, what did he report? 44. Provide the reports and documents relied upon. 45. Where was the information obtained that described Roger as armed and dangerous, having access to numerous weapons, and threatening people with weapons? 46. Provide all or any of the documents relied upon that Roger was mentally unstable, and/or dangerous to Susan. 47. Who determined Susan needed life-saving medication and what kind did she have? Provide the fullness of the records and accounting. 48. Who examined Susan, physically? Provide the fullness of the record and accounting, and justifications for any determinations for treatments and or therapies. 49. Who examined Susan, mentally? Provide the record. 50. Who examined Susan's state of well-being or asked her what her desires were? 51. Once Susan was removed from her brothers and returned her to lockdown again, why, and by whom? 52. Provide documentation, reports of Susan's condition and detailed itemized financial accounts. 53. Provide the reasoning shown, recorded on the docket, for permanently removing Susan's trust from Roger's authority, failing to return it to proper status, upon the early retirement of ex-Judge Doherty for previously removing too many trusts from others, causing too many claims against her. To allow the removal of Susan's trust from Roger's authority to be valid, is this an attempt to cover malfeasance? 54. Provide documentation and accounting details for number 53. Above. 55. Provide the official police reports that substantiate that information. 56. Who set forth and who signed in wet ink the aforementioned information to get the silver alert issued for Roger Soto? FBI? USMS? Jenkins? A combination thereof? 57. What agency and or what people sent the falsified information regarding Roger to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office? 58. What document was used by Stephen Moss to rescind the original trust from 1993 in 2014 that found Herbert Hillegas incompetent, and wherein the trust did Moss have legal standing to diminish Roger Hillegas's successor trustee to take over as both Poe and successor trustee from Roger, who was designated to make all medical and financial decisions on behalf of both his parents. 59. When Susan Hillegas was moved from her brother's home in Long Beach, California by force and sent to Reno, Nevada against her will, what was the medical evaluation that was conducted on her before returning her as a ward of the state? 60. In regard to 22. What were the names of the medical professionals that conducted that medical evaluation, investigation, and what other family members of the Hillegas family were involved in those medical decisions? 61. In regard to 23. Were there any attorneys present during this evaluation in California from the Reno area? And if so, who were they, or can they be identified? 62. In regard to 24. Who was the designated guardian when Susan Hillegas was in California? And how did that guardian coordinate with the medical professionals and staff involved with Susan's medical evaluation and transfer to Reno? 63. From the second week in August, don't have the exact date of transfer, Susan Hillegas was initially transferred to the nursing facility she left just a week earlier. 64. Who coordinated with the medical doctors in California for that transfer from the Stone Valley facility, and what was the purpose? 65. Susan Hillegas spent only a short time at Stone Valley upon her transfer from her brother's home in California, where she spent the remainder of her life in two other facilities to which she was transferred. 66. Who made the decision to move her from these two facilities? 67. With regard to 27. What was the names of the last two nursing homes where she was made a resident? 68. And what were the circumstances and reasons for her transition to two more nursing facilities in the space of less than 2 months? 69. Susan Hillegas died in her third nursing home without a proper inquest into her exact cause of death. Why? 70. What were the reasons for no investigation into the determination of her death given what had transpired within the ensuing 2 months? Why was there no police investigation into the circumstances of her death given the fact that Mr. Hillegas and Mr. Hand approached the Reno PD for guidance just 2 months prior given issues of abuse and neglect they reported to the police? 71. Why would the DA's office not provide due diligence to the circumstances of Susan Hillegas' death given the criminal allegations of kidnapping and burglary and in relation to what was stated in 30? 72. By law, what rights did the family members have towards a thorough investigation to determine Susan Hillegas's cause of death, even with court-appointed guardians' involvement, and especially in consideration of the legal circumstances of the Hillegas trust and impose guardianship, rescinding that trust being so controversial? 73. Susan Hillegas was cremated. Were these wishes outlined in the directives? Was her husband's directive also to be cremated? 74. If not, who authorized said cremations and for what purpose and by what justification? 75. What does the death certificate information details provide regarding Susan Hillegas's cause of death before cremation, especially with regard to the medical records in the last nursing home she was a resident of that might speak to the medications she was taking prior to death? 76. Taking into consideration the 3 nursing homes in the last 2 months of Susan Hillegas's life and the fact that she had a known heart condition, what do the medical records indicate of any trauma, stressor she may have suffered that made her heart condition worsen after suffering the trauma of a SWAT team's intrusion into her brother's home, separating her from her son never to see him again, and did it potentially ultimately contribute to hastening her death? 77. Was Roger Hillegas given access to his mother after his arrest and return to Reno, Nevada during those last 2 months of his mother's life, and if he was not, why exactly wasn't he? 78. As review of the questioning and answers, the People's Investigation offers you each the opportunity for redemption upon repentance to be negotiated. Certificate of Service, 000. I, People's Grand Jury Foreman, do hereby certify that I have this date personally delivered the within documents and certified service has been transmitted via digital email or its equivalent to the people holding title and office of administrators et al., and to the declaratory witness et al. As referenced of Washoe County, Nevada. True and correct copy of the above and foregoing presentment true bill certified and affirmed by the American Republic First Amendment assembled People's Grand Jury on this 27th day of June in the 2023 year of our Lord _be it known Roger Hillegas incarcerated unlawfully has been cancelled from outside communication. Therefore it is necessary for justice that he be allowed to fully review and accept personally the facts contained within and allowed to make changes for his personal ownership of this document. End of first document. Until further notice, People's Grand Jury presentment true bill.
All right, so you want to speak on that a little bit, Kathy, and then we'll play the grand jury video that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I'm here. I was trying to get back to the mute button.
Oh, no, you're good.
Yeah, that says what I had to say, what I understand about it. And that presentment was delivered to Breslow and Steggy yesterday, a hard copy. And the Gmails either have or they're going out today. And Roger and Stewart should be left safe away from their incarceration, both of them, until further notice. So when a trial can come, because they both need a trial against Breslow and Steggy as much as Breslow and Steggy want to put them away for 68 years. This is like both parties have to be heard.
Right. And they're not doing that in a lot of these cases. They're case fixing.
None of them, all of them. It's policy. We've accepted it too long for generations, and now it's just grown into a monster. Look at the agencies of every county.
Oh, I know.
It's all about dysfunction. Oh,
Yeah, it's horrible. The corruption's really freaking bad on
yeah.
every level.
And the solution, it has to happen between us through it by agreement. Too many people are harmed by all of this.
Oh, yeah. Way too many.
That video you're going to play is going to be great.
Yeah, although you checked it out, you cool. Yeah, I'm about to play it right now. Cool, awesome. Because I think it's going to be good.
I'm going to listen.
All right.
Now what are you going to do? Now the liberals control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And we're all afraid. we're inherently afraid because a person you thought was a king called a president is now not going to be your leader anymore. Well, that's what the media is leading you to believe, that we elect presidents that are more or less our masters. We elect judges and officials that are more or less our masters. Is this really what our forefathers put in place? Because, you know, they're considered public servants, but when they write laws, codes, and statutes, and you have to abide these, and if you don't, they put you in jail, aren't we really electing masters? But this is something that's been hidden for over 100 years. There used to be organizations, associations that taught this, and because life has been so good in America, we tend to forget where our freedoms come from. No different than the fall of the Roman Empire. It was a great life, but inherently we as human beings tend to forget what gave us this good life. So I'm going to lead you on a path that's the fix. This is the grassroots aspects of what our founders put in place for you to understand. It keeps people accountable. What would happen if your children weren't accountable for their actions? They'd be out of control. Well, you do believe that our politicians are totally unaccountable. What makes them accountable? Well, you're led to believe that elections make them accountable, that government fixes itself by electing people. Isn't that funny? But I'm going to show you something in your Bill of Rights. I'm not asking you to believe me 100%. I'm going to ask you to do your own research, your own homework, to understand this is what they intended to fix. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to talk about the New York State Constitution. Not the New York State, the Federal Constitution. Now, the Federal Constitution was amended or changed in 1786, and it went from the Declaration of Independence. Well, from the Declaration of Independence, we had the Articles of Confederation, and then they worked towards having the Constitution because they didn't have enough power, and George Washington was the first president under the Constitution. So we had people called Anti-Federalist and Federalist. Well, the Anti-Federalist did not want a strong centralized government because they could see the issues. And one of the most popular Anti-Federalists was Thomas Jefferson. And they didn't like the Constitution. But one thing they agreed to, they said, put the Bill of Rights in there and we'll agree to it. So let's go to the Bill of Rights. Here's the Bill of Rights right here. And you have your amendments, basically. Now, amendment means something that was changed to make better in the document, basically. And I was listening to Judge Napolitano one year, and he basically says, you know what the most important word in the Bill of Rights is? It's the word the. So when you see things, you know, it's the right of the people, the right to keep and bear arms, the right to free speech. The means it's something that existed prior to the writing of the document. So our rights are inalienable. They're from God. They're built within us. So the Constitution doesn't give you rights. A lot of people say, I have constitutional rights. Well, you don't have constitutional rights. You have rights the Constitution protects to get it to understand legally. So what we're going to concentrate on here is the the Fifth Amendment. No person shall be held to answer for capital or otherwise infamous crime unless a presentment or indictment from a grand jury. Well, the issue here is that nobody knows what the word presentment means. And it's very, very significant to understand where this came from. Well, the word presentment is basically different than an indictment. And what I'm going to do here to show the proof of what it means, here's a law article from Yale Law. You can search this. It's called Reviving Federal Grand Jury Presentments. Okay? Because the federal government in 1946 or 1947 said grand juries can't do presentments anymore. And here's a case that the grand jury ignored the government and did what they wanted to do because of the word presentment. So a presentment is a charge the grand jury brings on its own initiative, in contrast to an indictment is almost first drawn up by the prosecutor. So the grand jury can do a presentment on themselves. So the government doesn't tell them what to do. And right here it says the grand jury is a body of private citizens is more likely to be free from bias than a judge or government. It is by far one of the most significant things. You know, this is what holds politicians accountable. Now, how does it link to us? Well, first off, we have the New York State Constitution. So in our state constitution, it says under the Bill of Rights, Article 6, The power of the grand juries is to inquire into willful misconduct in office of public officers and to find indictments or to direct the filing of information in connection with such inquiry shall never be suspended by law. So it says right in the New York State Constitution that we're supposed to investigate public officers, but usually when people get on the grand jury, they listen to the government. That's why government brags, oh, we can indict a ham sandwich, because they know that most of the people, almost all the people on a grand jury are ignorant of the law. They don't understand how important it is to be on that grand jury, and realistically the grand jury can actually fire its own prosecutor, remove judges out of office. They are very, very powerful. This is why the politicians don't want you to know how much power you have as a grand jurist. So the other proof is actually in the New York State Grand Jury Handbook. I have hundreds of these at the garage. They sent them to me by mistake. And in here, we're going to, someone tried calling me, of course, interrupting my video here. I'll have to edit this part of the video.
Mm-hmm.
So in the grand jury manual, 190.85, in the New York State law, the grand jury may submit to the court by which it was impaneled a report concerning misconduct or nonfeasance or neglect in public office by a public servant as the basis for a recommendation of removal or disciplinary action, starting after investigation of public servant. So the grand jury can actually look into this and actually write reports to the government, telling the government how to fix things. There used to be something on the Niagara County Grand Jury website that stated in early 1900s, somebody complained about the living conditions of the Niagara County Jail. So they sent that complaint to the grand jury, which used to be housed in the sheriff's office. So the grand jury investigated the living conditions of the Niagara County Jail, wrote a report, and sent the report to the Niagara County legislator, or the county board of supervisors, which is now the county legislator, and they had to fix the problem. So not only can the grand jury investigate public offices, they can investigate things that go on with government and tell government how to fix them, along with nullifying bad laws. So even if the law is bad, if the law is a violation of your rights, and the government said, we want to charge this person with this charge or this felony, if the grand jury feels in their heart that the law is unconstitutional or really not a good law, the grand jury can choose to say not guilty, or no charge. They're not a trial. The grand jury decides that the person should be charged or not. That's the important aspect of that. And to prove that the grand jury can investigate things, here's a case in 1992 by Anton Scalia. It was called U.S. versus Williams. This case is online. It's also on a website called National Liberty Alliance. In here it says, the grand jury is mentioned in the Bill of Rights, but not in the body of the Constitution, has not been textually assigned, therefore, to any of the branches described in the first three articles. It is a constitutional fixture in its own right. In fact, the whole theory of its function, that belongs to no branch of the institutional government, serving as a kind of a buffer or referee between the government and the people. The grand jury can investigate merely on a suspicion that a law is being violated, or even because it wants assurance that it's not. Now that's the other big question. What is law? We are so confused to think that all laws have to be written. So I'm going to show you some basic elements here of our founding documents. So here's the Declaration of Independence. In the first paragraph, it basically says, laws of natures and nature's God. So we know here that in 1776, our founding fathers intended our government to run off laws of nature. It's called natural law. Okay? Now, a politician can't write natural law. Natural law is within your heart. Now, how does natural law get enforced? Well, it gets enforced, if you look at the 7th Amendment here, you could see, no court should be re-examined in court in the United States according to the rules of the common law. Remember what I said about the. The means it's law that existed prior to the writing of the document. So the common law is referring to the Magna Carta in 1215 AD when King John was usurping the rights of his people. So they created the grand jury and the jury system over 800 years ago to protect the people from the king. So the king couldn't say, you're charged and they're going to throw you in a dungeon. This way there was a body of private citizens or the barons to sit at the grand jury to investigate, to decide if you were charged with that crime. That was the first buffer. Then if you were charged with a crime, now you get a jury of 12 independent juries to hear the trial to decide if you're actually guilty. It's a buffer. It's a perfect system. That's why our forefathers put it in the Bill of Rights. But the problem is attorneys, which I feel are the biggest problem in society, they define it, common law as judicial precedent. So the word common law is judicial decisions, which isn't what it is. We're talking about the common law. So there's two things of what they mean out there. So common law is defined as judicial decisions, but when you think about judicial decisions, that's decided by a judge. Your judge is not your master. A judge can't decide what your rights are. He's your servant. The only one who can judge you is a jury of your peers, and that's actually legally defined as due process. That was a case in 1956. I can find that there. But the definition of common law is very, very significant. So I pulled this out of UB Law Library. It's American Jurisprudence. This is a course not required for attorneys to study. Attorneys are not studying the history of our law. All they do is study statutes, codes, and rules. So that's why many attorneys will not go above and beyond protecting your rights. So here's the definition of the common law. Thus, in a broader sense, the common law is a system of rules and declarations of principles from which our judicial ideas and legal definitions are derived. So judicial ideas, guess who the judge is? It's the jury. It's not a judge. Even though it says judicial, judges aren't supposed to judge you, only the jury, okay? So judicial ideas and legal definitions are derived, and which are continually expanding. It is not a codification, meaning that common law is not written, because it's natural law. It's common sense. It's from within your heart. What is good and what is evil. If you're sitting on a jury judging somebody, you don't have to have something written to know if it's good or bad. So that's what they mean. It's not a codification of exact or inflexible rules for human conduct, for the redress of injuries, or for the protection against wrongs, but is rather the embodiment of a broad and comprehensive unwritten principles. There's that word, unwritten. It's not written. Inspired by natural reason. There's natural law where it comes into. And the innate sense of justice, and adopted by the common consent for the regulation of government, of human affairs. The great fundamental object is the principle of common law was the protection of individual in his enjoyment of all of his or inherent and essential rights, and to afford him or her a legal remedy for their invasion. So common law means there's always an answer or a way to get paid or a remedy for your invasion. So I'm basically saying here, people, we're all upset about the president, we're all upset what goes on in government, but the problem is you. The problem is you don't understand what they gave us and how significant this document is. You just got to study it, understand it, and realize that when you're on the grand jury, when your friends are on the grand jury, that they can stop this. Every county has their own grand jury that sits there every month, and it's everyday people sitting on the grand jury. So we're starting grand jury associations throughout the counties in New York State. You can reach out to me here at Mungello's. My number is 716-625-6125. I'm on Facebook, or you can shoot me an email at citizennsa@gmail.com. You can reach out to me there, or just give me a call here if you got any questions on this topic. And to get your county grand juries associations up, you need to start setting up meetings and teaching people in this. And then we'll be knocking at the courthouse door using these associations that were started back in 1910. We're just simply starting them back up again. These associations did grand jury newsletters and everything else to teach people that when they got on the grand jury, they understood their power. That's how all the corruption stopped in downstate New York when the mob was elected in office during Tammany Hall in downstate New York. The grand jury stopped all that corruption, but you're not told that. So thanks for listening.
That was some really powerful information.
That was
Wow.
extremely powerful information, was it not?
It was.
Wow. Yeah, boy.
Yeah, that's how we do it, huh?
Yeah, that's how we do it. That's everything that's needed to be known, except who's your perp
Exactly.
and who's your witnesses.
So we got to get these committees started. So if anybody in any county wants to start one of these committees, reach out because
Yeah, definitely.
it needs to be done.
In essence, or in effect, and in its function, the grand jury is actually 24 with one foreman. So there's 25 witnesses. They're called declaratory witnesses because they don't have personal firsthand knowledge about what your perpetrator harmed you, but they have a knowledge what they're not. The public servants are not allowed to hurt the people. That's the purpose for having a country that has a constitution like ours. So we're just declaratory witnesses. And since the state calls, they used to call property owners, then they called voter registration, and now they use a driver's license. And they'll disqualify you if it's about driver's license, if you have one. I mean, if it's about a driver's license, for instance, we got probate, CPS, and licensing. They consider us to have, all of us have a license. Oh, that means we owe the state because we asked them for a license, whether it's marriage, birth certificate, driver's license, social security, insurance. But we didn't have full disclosure. We didn't know we were being lied to.
Right.
And even the attorneys don't know that. Some of them.
Oh, I know. It's really, it's crazy how just the cognitive level of cognitive dissonance there is with a lot of this, you know?
Right. Well, it's generational. When our grandparents were, I'm 65. My grandparents got over the war. That's when my grandmother went to work away from the house to build the bullets and left her children at home. And then after the war, the seniors wanted to just be comfortable, stay in the house and go bowling or have picnics and collect knickknacks. So my mother's generation was called me generation. We don't want to stay in the house and collect knickknacks. Let's go have some fun.
Mm-hmm.
So that generation had children. And my 65 generation is known as the latchkey children. We are the latchkey generation. We had to basically figure it out with the parents working, hopefully bringing food home.
Right.
But we figured it out how we treat each other. We just don't hurt each other. That's all. That's all. Just be kind. Fix what you can.
Yep.
So now we've got the generations who don't really know why.
Oh my God, it's really bad this now, isn't it?
That's why it's our job to fix it. Those of us
Yeah,
who know.
we have to bridge the gap. That's kind of the work we're doing here.
And like he was saying in the video, law is on your heart. It's just, more of a common sense. It's, right from wrong, how to harm someone and know how not to harm someone. And, common law, like real law of the land really is just truly, doing each other right and not causing harm to others. So why are our brothers and sisters doing this to other brothers and sisters? Why are, the people doing this to the people? Because these people in office, they're, they were just one of us and now they're coming against us. I don't understand why you want to harm your neighbor. Because these things they're doing, they just become tyrants.
That's right.
You might have to bring that link up the Instagram because it's not, the link it says is broken on my end, Angie. So you maybe bring it up on yours instead.
Okay.
Hey, he gave his phone number. Did either of you write that down?
No, but we can get it. We have it on the video.
Yeah, because I would really like to know how he's doing these committees in each county.
Well, what we found out, do you know who Bonds for the Win, Nikki on Bonds for the Wind is?
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Okay, so she took the basic instructions that bonds are what the school boards are bound by. They have an oath and they have a bond that they serve for the good. When she took the bonds there and said, you guys are not allowed to mask our children, they took that to their legal department, the school board did. The legal department came back and said, you guys better step down because they have a legal right and you do not. So they stopped masking the children in their county and others began to do it. And it's not any different with other.
With the judges and lawyers, they all have bonds, so we could do the same thing in theory.
They're supposed to, but now that they're incorporated, their bonds come from the umbrella of the county. And if you go in there and say, I was hurt and I need to be repaired, the county pays it and it's the people's money and the guy stays in office.
Nothing really changes.
Right. So taking them to task with the presentment in advance with your witnesses saying, let's ask this guy some questions. What gave him the authority to do that? Not just because he says so, but show us the law.
Right.
And then we have, by yourself, you're going to get picked off. But
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
take your crew with you, your soul tribe, that's for the safety
I
purpose.
love how you put in the chat, we are us, the accountables. That's awesome. I think that's great.
Yeah, we are good on demand.
They will
Good
pick
on
us
demand.
one off one by one if we try to do this alone. I was just saying that to Alexandra today. We have to do this in a group, many people, because they'll just go flick, 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 and just one by one, we'll never stand a chance. We won't get anywhere.
So now that we know that there's different departments, probate is one with guardianship. They're all taking the inheritance from the seniors. And then we got CPS, they're taking the little children to rehome them and sell them to people who want children, whether they abuse them or not is anybody's guess. I assume some of them do. I mean, I know they do, and they're left unchecked. So those two departments specifically, there are enough people harmed. Like in Roger's case, he's got 700 of them looking at this case saying, yep, same as mine. What are we going to do about it? But now that they are declaratory witnesses, now that's the process of the grand jury. We just tell the truth, how it is, how we want to be governed. Because if we don't step on that vote where we can, it's going to be done to us or our loved ones.
And that's why they've hidden this, because it is so powerful. That's why they've tried to keep it from the people. Because I didn't know about this until I came across that video.
Right. So since he's got that in New York and he's on Facebook, I got shut off for saying the grand jury on Facebook. They just deleted me. 4,700 friends at 250 CPS groups.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that was 4 years ago. So I just studied instead and wrote. And so this.
Well, I hope they don't do the same to us. It's crazy because last year we aired Pandemic Indoctrination, and we did like the video adaptation to our launch article. And they took down the initial video where we showed the documentary, but then a week later they reverted the decision and let it stand. So we actually got them to let us show the whole thing. I'm like, I was surprised that we were able to get that accomplished, but they backed off. I called them out on it basically. And then I guess they backtracked a week later.
Who did you talk to? I
didn't talk to anybody. I fucking ranted on it on the air and called them out on it. Every time they do that shit, I always fucking put them on blast. I fucking put screenshots and everything. I said, fuck you, Facebook. You ain't going to do that shit to me. I'm putting you on blast.
You put them on Facebook saying that? Or on Telegram?
No, I did it on Facebook. I called them out on the live when they were doing that shit. I called it out. And then I guess they went back and freaking, I didn't ask them to, but because there's no way to really do that. You can't really appeal to anybody. It just.
No, you can't. You're good. You're good for you.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's the good thing about the word, that it creates the light.
Yes, they can, definitely.
Well, it could do the dark too. That's what they've been doing.
Exactly.
We're one voice made of many, and we need to come together.
One voice, yes. And I think we do. The people do. We just haven't expressed it strong enough yet. But Roger Hilligan's case is the first one that we know of. I don't know New York yet. I'm going to find him though. But Roger out there in Nevada at Washoe County, those public servants are too strong in their own global monetary reward.
Yeah, it's all incentivized.
Yep.
And that's an extremely corrupt court. And in other places here in Missouri, the court here is extremely corrupt, and we have to do something about it. Because
that's where we were going with the bonds of the wind. The school boards were challenging the parents. Remember when they called the FBI on them?
Yeah.
The parents determined that becoming an association can make their own rules and support each other without permission from any other governing body.
That's funny that you should mention that, because we have the Clark County Education Association out here, and I have been covering the school board issue here in Clark County.
Have you? So that association, if it's a school board or if it's CPS or if it's probate, like these 700 probate people that are watching Roger's case having the same denial of due process.
Mhm.
That's an association. It's not an official written down. So that, like David Strait, you want to go change your status, you're going to have to sign on to the Secretary of State and get rid of your birth certificate and give us your driver's license
Right,
and
right.
don't vote anymore. Well, that is putting yourself. I asked him, what's the scripture that requires us to identify ourselves to anybody? And he has
that's
to hang up.
And they're
Yeah,
acknowledging that it's okay what they're doing by doing it.
There is no scripture that tells us to sign on to another construct of another man. It's we do not hurt people. When we're law abiding, we don't have a beef with anybody.
Right.
You just don't hurt people. But when you hurt people, there's got to be us as a force to say, you don't hurt people. You
And say
don't.
enough, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Like that guy, what's his name? Like he said, the judge doesn't do it. It's supposed to be the jury. And they want this next generation to forget about that and become hermaphrodites. And
you know, that was when I tried to point that out in my own case, when all the judges recused themselves, there was no reason for it. Why would the whole circuit court recuse themselves off this case? They're not the ones that judge me. It would be a jury. So it made no sense for them to have to do all that recusing like that for the trafficking of my daughter, basically.
Well, Roger's Breslow's opportunity to recuse himself is over. He's already done too much damage, and recusing himself is not going to work. He's got to remove himself from the bench and from his retirement, because that was it's a foreign takeover of our Constitution by the global policies.
And they're slowly doing it where people aren't seeing it. They don't notice like what's happening
until you get hurt by it, and then it makes us crazy.
Yeah. And then you find out you don't necessarily even know when you're being hurt what's going on. It takes a minute to like get a grasp.
Yeah. Did I do something wrong? What did I do to deserve this? No, it's encountering bullies is what have to be aware of. We know what bullies are. And when there are two or more of them coming after you, there are laws against that, their own laws. Title 42 and Title 18, 241 and 242 is the color of law title that says when two or more come in disguise in an authority and more language, but when they hurt you, that's not allowed. They're gang stalking, corporate gang stalking for profit.
And we have the right to form a militia, right?
Well, we are the militia. Each of us have 1 or 2 or 5 guns, but the militia that was if you call yourself a militia and go to the sheriff and 2 of you go and tell the sheriff that we are the posse comitatus, we have 6 guns. Each of us have 6 guns. With 1 phone call, I'll have 6 guns. Those guys will have 6 guns, and their guys will each have 6 guns behind them, so that if the sheriff needs help, call us and we will be there to surround the county in case of an insurrection. But they've outlawed it because they became vigilantes, because they forgot to be civilized and offer them the opportunity to speak for themselves. You give them notice, tell them they're liable for this harm, and let them defend themselves. That's civilized. Well, it used to be civilized. And if we don't get civilized, what's that?
Did you say they outlawed the militia to be able to do that?
They call the posse comitatus. You know, out west they say, "Get the boys, get the posse boys." Well, the posse comitatus became a what we say it was the vigilantes. So there's a doctrine, if you got a posse comitatus, which is actually the militia, but it's the militia in action that causes them the problem. Because if they didn't outlaw it and be looking for it, they would be saying, uh-oh, where are they going to come from? They're going to shoot us. I know we are. We're going to get shot for doing all these bad things. But the posse comitatus is outlawed because of vigilante activity. But the militia can never, God willing, we won't need it. But the militia doesn't get outlawed in America because we got more guns than the army.
Right. No, I see right where you're going to, too, because we do. We mean, like,
yeah, we have to be responsible with them. We don't.
Of course, responsibility and safety is key.
That's
of
why
course,
they're trying to take all our gun rights from us.
And together,
slowly,
if we just start shooting the officer that comes to the door asking questions, we're getting taken out. one by one, even
Right.
with our guns. But when we have an assembly or the first, we need the First Amendment before we need the Second Amendment. That's
Yes.
why it's first, is we assemble, like in the church, in the playground, in the schools, we have an
Yes.
assembly and we discuss this. And if there's something wrong in the county, it needs addressed and we go fix it, civilized like.
Yes.
And protesting is rarely doing any service because it's just shouting and passing some energy, but it brings awareness, but writing it directly to the individual saying, here's your opportunity to answer. And when they don't answer, just like when we don't, okay, that's default. You admitted everything.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, right?
Yep.
That's right. We learned it from them.
Yeah.
Angie, you want to screen share and show that Alex's video? Kind of ties into the whole gang stalking aspect, I think, that we were talking about.
Okay. Let me see.
I'm going to, while you're doing that, I'm going to go on mute. I have a call to take for a short time and I'll be back.
Okay. Sounds good.
And I really appreciate you reading that thing online.
Yeah, of course. Anytime.
God
But
bless. I'll be back.
stick around because we want to get your input on this afterwards.
Yeah, I love this. I'm not going anywhere. You
All
are
right.
the most effective that I've seen so far.
Oh, thank you.
For bringing that video and reading that. I'll be back.
Of course.
I mean, I'll be listening, but yeah,
We'll be
I'm
here.
on mute.
All right. Alex, can you hear me?
Screen share, Dottie, so we can see what we're
Hold
doing.
on, give me 1 second.
Uh-huh.
One thing. I don't know if Alex can hear me.
Is your call still going on? Check your Instagram call tab.
That was. Am I muted? Alex, can you hear me? I don't know where she went. Okay. So Alex is in St. Louis County courthouse, the same courthouse that I'm out of. We had, John Finley, an attorney that was both in common. She figured out all the corruption. She started to realize the corruption and what was going on in St. Louis County and got rid of her lawyer, withdrew. And now she has been filing with the courts, trying to prove no jurisdiction and the court took place in the wrong venue. And she's been filing with the courts and she's trying to go to the Court of Appeals. So she's been active with the courts, filing her case, trying to get things put in order and, have it right. The county, there's no reason for this woman to be in St. Louis County. Her case should never have been in this courthouse. Why is it there? We don't know. She lives in the city and everybody else lives in Cuba, Missouri. Nobody lives in this jurisdiction, but they're trying to say they have jurisdiction, which they do not. And her babies have been taken from her for over 2 years now, just like my daughter. So this morning she woke up to, and now the only thing I know is she's been active in the courts. So I don't know why or who these men are, but this morning she woke up to these police officers coming to her house. Let's take a look at it. I mean, it's just crazy. This is how, when they came and took me, this is kind of how they were dressed when they came and grabbed me and put me in jail for those 2 weeks on the $75,000 cash only bond, except for their ballistic vest didn't say sheriff, they said police on it. And there was 7 of them. So, and they were in unmarked cars, but to me, it just reminds me of the same thing. It's the same situation. Except for this is 2 officers in a paddy wagon for 1 little girl. Not that she's a girl, but she's tiny. I mean, full gear. Like what paperwork are you serving to be in full gear? Now, I was a process server for 20 years, and I never showed up at a door like this just to serve, process papers, like a summons or anything like that. But he obviously has some kind of paperwork in his hand. I believe it may be a commitment to the hospital because this is how they took her children from her. Was they committed her into Barnes Jewish Hospital psychiatric ward like they did my daughter, and then took her kids and gave them away without any court order. They went and filed the court order after the fact of her already placed and her kids already being taken. Then they went to the courts and got some kind of paperwork. So her children were kidnapped and placed with this man with no court order. And once they did get something from a court saying anything, it's a court that doesn't hold jurisdiction, and it was in the wrong venue. Yes, all Missouri courts, they hold jurisdiction already just because it's in Missouri. And we all know that law, that rule, that, you know, that the civil courts has jurisdiction over cases, right? But they have districts, you know, like certain places have jurisdiction over certain areas. And she lives in St. Louis City, which is separate from St. Louis County. They have their own division, you know, family division, everything. So there's absolutely zero reasoning why her case is in the court. These are city officers. So why are city cops coming to, you know, because this is all from her, stemming from her custody case. They look strange. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, they do.
You can't see the name badge, like the name tag. You can't make anything out. Like she zooms in on it, but you can't see a name on it.
Yeah, that's you got we have the second video.
Yeah, I don't know how much difference it is, but let's see. Oh, it's her taking a video of the same video. Okay.
Why don't I bring up those audio calls we did earlier and that we recorded and play those?
So we called the sheriff's department to find out why the sheriffs were coming to her door. You have them ready?
Yeah, I got them. You can stop screen sharing whenever, and I'll start.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
I gotta clear some. I gotta make sure I have enough memory to record this shit.
Oh, we're recording too.
And make sure to put it on speaker.
Yeah, make sure to put it on speaker, and we're recording too, Alex.
Cool.
So it's 622-4851 is the telephone number.
Okay.
Yeah, they came after her today, dude. That's how they came after me, except for there was like 6 of them. And they had a sheriff van and instead of unmarked cars. So a little different, right? Just a little different, but the same.
314-622-4851.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm calling. And what do I say?
Okay, she's calling them. Yeah, you're going to say, my ring bell fucking alerted me. I looked on the cameras. I had some sheriffs. I just had a minute to call. I'm trying to figure out what the sheriffs needed, why they were at my door.
Make sure my location's off.
Because they could be serving you an eviction notice in a ballistic vest, right?
No, because I called for my landlord and I was like, bro, are you okay?
I know, I'm joking.
He's like, no.
No, I'm joking, dude. I'm playing, but play stupid like that. Like, I don't know if they're trying to serve me with an eviction notice. Like, you want to play as stupid as you can because they'll give you, the more stupid you sound, the more information hopefully they'll give you.
Okay, I'm calling him now.
Okay.
Sheriff's Office Civil Division, may I direct the call?
Hello, this is Alexandra Dean. I don't really know how you can direct my call, but I saw on my Ring doorbell that there was 2 sheriffs that looked like they were maybe trying to serve me with some paperwork. So I don't know.
Is your address in the city of St. Louis?
Yes.
Did they leave at the car?
No.
What has the address where the doorbell shows them?
Dude,
Sure, St. Louis City Sheriff's Office, correct?
yeah, it said sheriffs on their outfits.
So can I have the address?
Yes. So it was 2215 Montana Street.
215. Montana, MLNANA.
Yep, Street, St. Louis, Missouri. So
No
you're saying,
apartment number or anything?
no, it's just a house. So you're saying usually they leave like a card on the door?
Well, I mean, sometimes I don't know. I just answer the phone, darling.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so no apartment number or anything like that?
No.
Alright, and your name?
Alexandra Dean.
ALEXAND.
RADEAN.
Okay. If I can have a number, then I can have them call you back.
Okay, 314
Yes, ma'am.
323
Okay.
8267.
8267. Alright, I'll have to get with the lieutenant, find out what deputy goes to that 100 block of Montana, then I get the message to that deputy, and then they'll get back to you as soon as they can.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks for calling, hon. Have a good evening.
You too, bye. Did you hear that?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Why is there no note on my door?
That's interesting. Well,
definitely interesting.
no, that's interesting about the what they're doing. That's interesting. Okay.
So did you guys get that whole recording?
Yeah.
Okay, because I have to delete that from my phone. It wasn't that.
Yeah, we did. We got it.
We got it recorded.
Right, go ahead.
How do I get this to rewind? I don't know if I can. We'll just watch it from here and just play it over.
It's kind of a time-sensitive matter.
Right, go ahead.
Do you have the recording when she called the lady back?
Yeah, the 18-minute recording one.
No. When she called the lady back and she told her, why are you scared about men in uniforms?
I think that was one you recorded, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I want to play that one next.
All right. Crap. You'd have to leave the Zoom and then jump back on it to convert on your computer to be able to access it. Yeah, that's what I had to do.
Oh, I
Because
don't
it
know.
doesn't convert until after the meeting, and then we did the same. We used the same meeting for the live. So
I think she has it recorded. Let me see if I can get her.
okay. In the meantime, I'm going to play this while we do that. Okay.
Well, I think we should talk about this. I want to get Kathleen's opinion.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do it.
And if the grand jury would be able to help her, if something like that would be able to help her.
Yeah. What's your take on this, Kathy? What do you think she can do?
Oh man. Well, by herself, lay low. There's nothing that you can do by yourself. Electric shock is a pretty serious thing if they get hold of her. If that's what they're wanting to do. I just talked to my friend. They tried to do it to her husband because he didn't like it that they were taking the 3 children and giving them to Salvation Army. Her 3 children are delivering food to the homeless people for free at the Salvation Army. And she's in Florida and they're in the Carolinas. There's nothing you could do by yourself that I know of. My case went to the Supreme Court. They broke my neck. I got a steel plate. They broke my back 2 times and both of my hips are replaced because the judge said, put her back in jail till she'll cooperate without the jury. Go figure. I healed. I'm bionic, baby. I fear not. I got a lot of confidence that God wins, but we have to be together doing it.
We have to be united, folks.
An association of parents is already happening, but they're not bringing it like that document that you just read. You have to be able to ask them intelligent questions with witnesses, because if you ask them, they ignore you. But with enough people witnessing, there's hope. But without the witnesses, they just hurt you. And
that's why we need the court watchers. That's why we need the people to show up and stand united.
Yeah, the court watchers, that's one thing. But when all of the people that are court watchers, when we become an association and say CPS is not allowed to be a profitable child stealing organization, they're not. The state gets the feds give the states out of Social Security, the feds give the states $7, and each state gives their county $3 of those dollars for every dollar they use to steal a child. And then they tell the parents, you have to pay child support because we got your children. No,
Exactly.
this is evil. This is worse than just criminal. This is evil.
It is.
And it's systematic, and it is, can't you tell by the way they want to have the children turn into opposite sex?
I know, it's
evil.
ridiculous. What are they doing?
They're pedivores.
Oh,
They
it's
eat those
disgusting.
children.
That
I don't know. I don't know how many of them do, but if one of them do, would you say?
It's that, it's pedophilia, it's attack on families, it's to weaken the family unit and to leave women vulnerable. You know, they take the masculinity, our whole society, they take that out of our society. We need men. We need them to be manly. If they take that away, that is no longer existing in our society. We become vulnerable to them, like very vulnerable.
And they've got estrogen in all the food and in the water and making the men to have estrogen, and they're putting fear into the women, which are cortisol. Living in fear causes your body to deteriorate. Can't think right.
Break us down, leave us control. You know, they just thought we got too much control. They, you know, we were too free. So they're trying to take, you know, what they think was too much from us.
Well, I think this is because we've allowed, for generations, we have allowed our politicians to be called leaders instead of being sure that they're serving, they're serving people instead of serving self.
Serving, not leaders, servants. It should be an honor to have that position. And you should take it with honor, you know. And
right. It should be a privilege, not a sacred duty, not a given.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
exactly. And
so forming an association where we have enough parents who have been harmed, but one at a time, let's go to the appeals court, let's sue them. And it's not working. It's not going to work because they make too much money.
So once you have this group together, could you one more go over the steps, the process? Like, so say I have 25 women and now we want to do something. What would be our first step?
You write it down. You make your truth statement. The legals call it an affidavit, but it's basically your timeline in order. You start at the first date that you had to start defending yourself, and you make a list of numbers. There has to be numbered paragraphs. So on the number 1, you put the date and who did the name and title. And then you go down the list. So when you look at how many people are involved with this, taking your children, you start to say, I see, I did not do something wrong. When you write your timeline, first make the list of perpetrators with their name and title. Then you go back to the top and you say, what did the first one do or omit, and go down the list of their deeds and omissions. And then go back. This is the easiest way to write it. You go back on Google Docs. It works really well. You go back to the top and say, how did it feel? What were the results, the loss, the damage? And for each one of them, you look at that damage and you say, well, there's laws against this. Their own code tells you how much money, like perjury, is it 25,000? Some of the damages are 250,000 and 3 to 10 years in prison. Treason is what this really is, and it's death.
Yeah, you can be hung in the nearest intersection at high noon until dusk.
Drawn and quartered even.
Yeah.
But to write it down, if you have a trauma, like if you just keep saying what the problem is, somebody help me, I'm broken, I need my children, it's dangerous for them, I need them back, they need me. You just keep crying. You never write it down, then the jury can't even hear it, right? And the jury doesn't want to hear you crying. They want to know what the facts are, and that means who did or failed to do what. How did, the damage is obvious when there's bullies out there and they're doing it for profit. But writing it down and then having your association say, okay, let me look at the facts. Show me how you can prove that you got hurt. And that when you write it down with the witnesses, the notice of liability is easy. It's the corporate paycheck is evidence that they are criminal activity. Corporate paychecks are not public servants. They are profitable. If a corporation fails to make money, it fails. Exactly. So they're making money to keep going, but they're not being public servants of the Constitution. And that's the only job they're allowed to have while they're in service.
So
we
how do
take them
we
to
how do
task.
we stop them from making that money by doing what they're doing? We have to bankrupt them. We have to freaking force
Get
their
them in your
hand, right?
pocket. You get them in your pocket, right? In their pocket. Well, that's the process. The presentment is the facts, just the facts.
And that's what
And
this
then
executive order will help do as well, I believe, right?
that is the enforcement of it, because
Yeah.
when the county commissioners are obligated to train and supervise good constitutional behavior. And until you say, this is what this guy did this to me and my children, and I've got witnesses. Now you go to the county commissioners with that and you say, he's not allowed to work like this. You got to remove him from his job until you fix me. Then the executive order allows liens to go on their properties, assets, and accounts. But it has to be done with the witnesses, because then I'm losing my breath walking around talking. This is thrilling. I'm so glad we got this going on. So there's a group of men called the Colorado 8. They're in prison. They used to be Colorado 9, but one of them died. And they put liens on the properties of the public servants. But what they failed to do was come to the public and say, hey, these guys are bad guys and we need your support because we got to get them out of office. They just put the liens on them. They called the FBI and put them all in prison, and they're still there.
Wow.
But when you do it in public, that's what the assemblies are for. Assemblies, it's just like-minded people coming together for the same purpose, right? Children, seniors, schools, whatever it is. Do you know who Rainer Fulmich is?
No.
Well, he's a German man who practiced law in America.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah, Fulmick, right?
Rainer Fulmich. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
taken Fauci and Gates and all the
Yeah,
big
he's the
guys.
one with the glasses, Daddy, the lawyer out of Germany.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one.
Well, he got blackballed out of Germany for bringing the grand jury, and he got blackballed out of America, and he's living in Mexico. His last video said.
Oh,
that
wow.
He's done over 400 medical examinations. I mean, medical testimonies, interviews, and has enough evidence. But he says, I got to find a judge, an honest judge that will look at it. And he thinks he found one in New Zealand, but he gave up on America because not enough people recognize that the judge is supposed to be impartial,
Right.
and just keep order in the room. He's not supposed to be making all these determinations.
Right.
It's not his place.
No, it is the jury. But we can take any county that doesn't want CPS anymore. You've got to write it down and have the mothers come and say, the money that CPS used to get, we want that money, and we're going to provide for our children with it instead of allowing.
Oh my God, Dottie, that could be perfect way you could approach your family circle. Yeah.
You got a family circle?
Well, she's got like an idea she had for as a system to kind of like replace, what CPS is doing, because they're obviously taking advantage and hurting kids. What she wanted to do is come up with their own system that helps nurture and bring families together and help resolve disputes and issues within that circle, if you will. But I'll let her.
I mean,
Yeah, it's called the family circle. It's they have something similar already in the court system called justice circles in some courthouses, and it's just really about the community coming together and it being dealt with as a community, and everybody getting to speak and coming up with a resolution together, and then like, holding that unit together, just the community together as a family, kind of like a family, because we have to take care of one another.
That's what the county commissioners are supposed to be. But because now they've got all this global goofy gossip about sustainability and policy and bylaws, they just forgot. We have to just remind them.
Right. So if I wanted to bring an assembly together, how would one make an assembly?
Well, the assemblies are starting all over the place. 3 people can start an assembly as long as you can get along. And you vote. The first time you come together, you have a meeting that you record. It's a scribe, a moderator, and a security. Those 3 positions can start it. And when you have your meetings, if it's only once a week, as long as you're keeping records, it takes 3 weeks for you to become established with just the 3 of you. They're called interim officers. Once you've done 3 weeks, now you're organized and you can go into the you use Robert's Rules of Order. One person speaks at a time and shows respect, and motions on the tables, old business and new business, just basic like the commissioners do it. So
Right.
once you have your 3 officers voted in, now you publicize it for 6 weeks. Put the flyers up,
Newspaper.
put it on social media, invite the public. Once you have enough people in the public, you can vote for officers who are the final vote. I mean, the big vote. When big group comes, you got to have another vote to see if somebody's better qualified to be any one of those positions. But as long as you keep the minutes going and establish yourself, the agreements you make are, nobody's allowed to mess with somebody else's agreement. That's what the associations are.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So see, we got about five minutes. We're coming up on 2 hours. Do you want to do, were you able to get a hold of Alex?
I have not been able to get a hold of her. I don't know if they found where she was, and I don't know because she's not answering.
Okay. Maybe we should do a follow-up, because once we were done with the live, it should convert on your end because I know you recorded it, and we'll do a follow-up on that.
Okay.
If that works.
Yeah, because when they did call her, well, we actually called back a second time. That's how we were on the phone with the sheriff's department. It seemed to me like the lady knew why they were coming to her door, and she said, "Why are you afraid of uniformed officers?" Well, these are not uniformed officers, in my opinion.
Freaky. That's freaky that she would even ask the question instead of just saying, "What, we know they're there and they're there for reasons." That's just freaky.
Yeah,
and the uniforms, those were not uniforms. Those were blue jeans and tattoos.
Yeah, and then just a ballistic vest. Anybody
can get one of those.
That sheriff truck looked pretty cool, but it's not a sheriff's truck that I know of. I mean, you know what the sheriff looks like. These guys are SWAT teams.
Yeah, like what were you saying? They weren't our neighborhood police?
If they were your neighborhood, would they be hurting your neighbors? I don't think so.
Probably not.
No.
The security business is pretty big. Not only that, when they shut down, I was at Iran or Iraq, and those 9 senior militaries came back, they each went into their own position in charge of another weapons unit. I mean, weapons manufacturers. All of these bio things and all of drones and such, robots and such that they got going in New York now. They all got put in charge of their own company to bring weapons against people.
And that makes more sense for me. When my discovery came back, it said it was a special response unit, and it was the Bureau of, I can't remember, something Bureau. And when I looked it up, it was like the things that were coming up when I was trying to search who they were, Homeland Security, Security Department, places like for becoming a security officer. That would make more sense, because it didn't make sense to me why they were titled in that nature.
Right.
Yeah. I haven't looked into NATO, but I looked up the 5th article of the Constitution, and the only time it's been invoked was one time at 9/11 when NATO invoked the 5th article. It was so that now it's an international problem and they can have international police here. That's how that went.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it makes sense, because that ties right into the Patriot Act and what they were trying to do with that. I was fighting against the National Defense Authorization Act back in 2012, sections 1031 and 1032. I did some grassroots work. Actually, my early grassroots work was with pandaunite.org and solutionsinstitute.org, which was founded by Daniel Johnson, a kid out of, I think, Ohio, Bowling Green, Ohio. But he founded these organizations. I had to help them do quite a bit of work on it. But that's initially what inspired me to do the News for Us the way I did it.
Sweet. God bless you.
So you're saying potentially that those officers may not even be like American officers. I mean, we don't.
Yes, absolutely. I'll bet that they are exactly what we're saying, because did you see the guy in Utah, the 21 or 22-year-old driving his car through Utah? He was a student.
They murdered him. They murdered
that. They unloaded. They had to reload to get that many bullets. But the weird thing is, when I think back on that video, I don't even know if I saw a bullet hit the car. No. I know they broke the window, opened the door to pull him out. First thing the guy said, "Gun," and the video comes right over there to see it. And then all of these guns, and that kid's supposed to be blasted dead.
Yeah,
But
no,
I-
that was one video I really looked at. I mean, I looked closely at that video and yeah, that wasn't right at all. They murdered
yeah.
that boy. That was pure
One
blood
bullet
murder.
would have done it. I mean, that was overkill. That was
It was
definitely
overkill.
when
Well,
the
you know,
Way
and
overkill.
they were having problems with him. He was just in the police department or in the courtroom the day before arguing over, tickets for like license plates and registration, which, you don't have to have. So, and he was bringing that up in court with him and his mom. They had problems already. So they had reasons to want to do that to him. I
Right.
guess if you call them
Questioning.
reasons for murder, but in their minds, they had reasons for that.
Yeah, it's against the democracy. The democracy means they own us. 51% rules, and as soon as they can get the policies voted in, now they use the enforcement against us. But it's not constitutional. And that's how they use us, our money, our resources to go over there and conquer every other country, taking out their politicians and putting their own in. And we've allowed them to do it. And
Well,
we
just
need to
look at
stop
what
them.
they've done with the Ukraine recently. I mean, oh my God, how much money of ours have they sent over there? I'm so infuriated by that.
Yeah. So in our Constitution, it changed to 1929 was the Reapportionment Act. We were supposed to have one representative for every 30,000 people. And because they needed to change it to 33,000 in 1929, they decided the next time, instead of increasing the number of representatives to fit the population, we'll just limit the House seats so that now each of those representatives have 750,000 people each.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah.
This is not enough for proper checks and balances.
No.
But we are just enough if we
Right.
do come together in agreement and stop the ego stuff. So many people want to be celebrities and they're just not.
Oh my God. See, I'm the anti. If anything, you could say I'm the anti fame fortune. I don't give, like, I'm using a pen name for this broadcast. I don't even use my real name. So, and that's for good reason. I'm not out for fame and fortune. I just want to get to the facts and I want justice.
Yes, you do. You come sincerely with the honest presentment, and I acknowledge you for it. You're spectacular.
I appreciate your acknowledgement. Thank you very much. I try hard at what I do. I'm very, very thorough when I can be.
And I haven't talked to somebody else who's able to hear like you are. Listen.
I'm flattered that like I'm able to help people like on that level, because that's important to me. I think it is. The listening is so important. I
see that about you. You've been doing great.
I appreciate that. It's been an uphill battle, but we're winning, man. We're fighting the good fight. Man, it seems like every time we're like over the target, we get some sort of interference or some sort of infiltration attempt. We've had SOG, Special Operations Group, a person that we used to work with that I was supposed to be my buddy, come freaking try and hijack our shit. We survived that.
Wow. Oh, barely, almost not.
Oh, barely. Oh my God, that was a mind fuck. Excuse my language.
I can't imagine what you went through. Tell me, can you want to say more?
Well, I'll probably touch on it a little more. We were on a live broadcast when all this went down the day that happened, and we ended up doing a 5-hour broadcast proving the trafficking in Johnny's case, because I was so infuriated by what this person was doing. They were trying to they're not even paying attention, dude. They're trying to control the shit. I'm like, no, not happening.
Yeah.
While you were on live, somebody came in to
Well, it was somebody that we work with, that I used to work with, somebody that I co-founded, or we had done the News for Us thing as a team. But he had the idea. I bought the domains and I got the site up and everything. I did all the work, but he was trying to hijack it.
I see.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa, not doing that shit.
So he could sell merchandise.
Was a video I had made about the trafficking in underground. The children being underground and stuff, and it triggered him. It triggered him so bad. It was the weirdest thing ever. And, we were live on Sacred Lovisa, and he was trying to claim that, which he had nothing to do with that particular end of anything. Wow. There's the News for Us, and then there's the Sacred Lovisa that, focuses on the court corruption and, all the CPS and all that, because of my, that's what got me involved, was right. My daughter being taken. So that was, that's our focus. And we were on that podcast when he flipped out over a video, and tried, yeah, he tried to do all kinds of things. It was, but some of
He
the
got
stuff,
he got my original News for Us page, but that was about it. I managed to lock him out of everything else.
Wow. Maybe he was adopted and it just triggered him.
Well, he's former Blackwater, so he's actually a merc himself, and
Oh.
that's what I was saying. Like with the kind of people that they're hiring, that's what I was getting at. Like this is absolutely happening because I the person that I had initially started this with, a special operations group. I've seen his coin.
Wow.
Division
And
of Psychological Warfare and Cyber Warfare. He specialized in. So
Oh my gosh. That's why they're electrocuting people in their head. I mean, shocking them, right?
Mhm.
I got
and I
another girl.
triggered something.
And I suspect that he's possibly SSP-20 and back as well. Although I don't think he has his real memories. I think he's still got his screen memories. That's just my estimate of it, though.
Wow.
Yeah. And triggers are always
I
out there.
I hadn't heard of electrocution or a brain, what they do with electrodes on your brain to shock you into out of something. I haven't heard of that so much as I have in these last couple of weeks.
Right.
Blows me away.
Right. That's what they were trying to do to Alex in the mental ward. They were trying to get her to sign something saying that, they could kill her and that I guess she would agree to let them do this to her. Like they were trying to force her to sign it.
And she didn't, she had enough sense not to sign anything.
She did not sign it.
Wow. I hope she's safe. I'm sorry you couldn't get hold of her.
Yeah, eventually they let her out, because they can only hold just so many days and they have to have all these different hearings and whatnot. They eventually let her out, but that's not to say that they're not gonna, especially
well, they were there today.
Yeah, this just shows because she's fighting back. She got rid of the lawyer that was handling her and she started fighting back. And I started helping her and she started learning some laws and like true law and what was going on and what was happening. And she started realizing how much they had kidnapped her children. So she's been filing in the courts, trying to make it right, because
like we all have. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sell your house.
So she's got the attention on her right now. They're paying attention to her because she's been filing.
Right. Call her subversive. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So they want, they want to shut her up. They want to shut us up. That's why they came after me. It was all retaliation. They wanted to shut me up. Then they tried to scare me in submission and then, give me another handler and then handle me into whatever position they wanted me to be in. But fortunately, like you said, you could, I learned some law, I put it on my heart and I knew right from wrong. And I stood on my own 2 feet and stayed in my truth and didn't let them make me into that fictitious corporation that they could do business with.
Yep.
I got a girl, the one I'm talking about in the Salvation Army that's feeding the homeless. They're charging her $1,000
For
a
doing
month
that?
for child support.
Oh, wow.
I've heard people being in trouble for feeding the homeless though, too. So
If she doesn't pay the $1,000 a month, they won't even let her talk to her children once a week. Not even once a week.
yeah.
That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. They took my daughter 2 years ago and I'm not allowed to anything. I didn't get anything.
So
you've got to have many CPS girls, don't you?
Yeah.
When you're ready, that's an assembly. When you're ready, we could write the notice of liability and put each of them on notice that they better give the children back or they don't get to keep their retirement.
Okay.
Yep.
Retirement. You do that. You tell me when, and we will do this, and they will understand how to write their claim, and we'll put it to them because this can't stand.
No,
can't allow it. It's evil, and we can't allow it. It's evil if we allow it.
No, we can't allow it.
No,
All it takes for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing.
There you go.
Exactly. Because just like every courthouse in every state, we need help. We need a remedy. There's always a remedy, right? Where's the remedy? They have to provide a remedy.
We are going to provide that remedy.
Yes.
If it's case by case, that's what we'll do. But agency by agency would be better. And if you have the girls who are willing to stand and stop screaming and crying and start writing, if you can say your story more than once, you should write it down because talking about it's not going to do anything.
No,
You have to write a timeline.
It's like writing it in a tort.
Yep.
That's like I have mine written down just because I've been trying to learn, like tort law, like torts and trying to make write my own federal tort or something. I don't know, just something. So I have an outline of my case personally that's outlined, like you were saying, who was
bring your girls together. bring your girls together. And if you have them locally, that's cool. And if they're not
No, I
locally,
do.
that
There's
doesn't
a bunch
matter.
of us.
Any last words, you guys? We're going to wrap it up here, and then I'm stick around because I'm going to touch base with you, Kathy, just for a brief moment. I got to go make my mother dinner after the live, but I'll be back in like an hour after that if that works for you, and we can do that email
You
thing.
call me when you're ready. Yeah, both
Sounds
of you.
good.
either
Okay,
one.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Great.
just only last thing I want to say is anybody in Missouri that's dealing with this courthouse, reach out. Let's make an assembly.
Yep. Let's
Good
do it.
girl. All right. Sweet.
Thank
Is
you,
this going to
everybody,
be
for
recorded?
joining us.
This is going to be posted so they can hear it right now when we hang up.
Oh, it's live. Yeah, it'll be ready to go to replay live. We're live right now still. So yeah.
Oh, all right. Sweet. God
Yep.
bless you guys. You're tremendous.
Thank
Bless
you
you.
so much for
doing it.
coming on and joining us. We'll definitely do a follow-up with you.
You got it. I'll be here.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Talk to you later. Thanks. See
Thank
in
you,
an hour.
everybody, for joining us. Don't forget to follow our social media. Links are in the description. And don't forget to follow Sacred Lovisa as well. And check us out where we broadcast frequently every week on many of these issues. Good night, everybody.
Night.